Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Anthropology is defined as the comparative study of human societies and their development. Born on December 16, 1901 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, one woman would come to revolutionize this field. This profound scientist, Margaret Mead, was already an anthropologist in the making, having been born to Mother Emily Fogg Mead, a sociologist, and Edward Sherwood Mead, a professor of economics. As a child, Mead's interest in those around her took hold and was evident in the recorded observations of her siblings. It was only later on during college that she would fully associate with her calling. Having completed a psychology major at Barnard College, Mead continued her education at Columbia University in an effort to earn a doctorate in anthropology. Inspired by the teachings of Franz Boas and his assistant, Ruth Benedict, Mead was pushed into the field and was set to take off on her first expedition. By her graduation in 1925, her first trip as an anthropologist would be to Samoa, a small Polynesian island north of New Zealand. There, her mission was to observe the adolescent female population and study the way they carried out their day-to-day life. Analyzing the effects Samoan culture had on their development, Mead would compare these findings to what she knew about young women in America to determine how the culture they were brought up with influenced them. According to Mead, the girls she interviewed had not faced the pressures that American and European adolescents encountered. Unlike the strict conformity that was enforced upon American teenagers, Mead interpreted their transition into adulthood as easygoing. Young women in America were pressured to adhere to certain societal constructs, ensuring that they are limited to a domestic lifestyle for the sake of their families. Concepts such as responsibility and abstinence limited the American young woman in ways that Samoans never were, with the support of an open-minded and unconventional society. With this information, she decided that culture was in fact correlated with how people behaved, and that it was not an inherent part of them. In 1908, she culminated her research into her first book, Coming of Age in Samoa, which outlined her views and experiences, providing commentary regarding the contrast between American and Samoan behavior and values. This would lead to her becoming a household name, generating a variety of opinions from curious Americans. Many people were not in favor of her conclusions, as the popular notion at the time was that people were all born a certain way and their surroundings and experiences could not change that. While the controversy was often against Mead, it successfully led to people discussing her research. The popularization of anthropology into what's known as today can be credited to Mead and was due to her own writing.
In those days, anthropologists used to pepper their pages with language that nobody spoke. If I'd used words like exogamy and endogamy and things like that, they couldn't have read the book. So I wrote it in English for the people I thought would use it. And if you write a book for people who are going to use something, you write it for the whole world.
Further along in her career, Mead began the lifelong process of shedding light on cultures throughout the world, making anthropology a science accessible even to those with no prior knowledge about it. In exemplifying this cause, Mead joined the American Museum of Natural History, becoming assistant curator of ethnology. She then returned to her fieldworks, the results of which further enforced the conclusion she'd already drawn. In New Guinea, Mead sought further proof of the connection between development and culture. There, she studied the lives of young children, analyzing their day-to-day habits. Once again, she realized that the kids she studied were affected by their environment and society, evident in their behavior. With her third husband, Gregory Bateson, Mead moved up into mainland New Guinea before heading to Bali. There, they studied the local gender roles and found that they differed between different communities. As such, Mead concluded that gender roles were a social construct and not a natural phenomenon. The support of these findings were just one of Mead's expressions of her value of feminism. She promoted her ideas about feminism and women in America through a column in the magazine Red Book, which was geared towards female readers. Mead was again popularizing anthropology by providing women with information that could help them further their own lives. While some critics claimed that her findings were merely the results she'd want to see justified, they nonetheless brought up tough questions that had not been attempted before. Finally, women were beginning to find that they did not have a fixed social position in society. Additionally, during her trip to Bali, Mead led change in her chosen field by influencing the way people were studied radically. Mead utilized technological advances of the time to record observations on film. She was thus allowing those interested in her research the ability to interpret her work with their own conscience, in addition to considering Mead's own interpretation of events. With her additional use of photography and film, Mead also studied people with a means to judge others, through examining their character at a psychological level. Having studied psychology in college, Mead took interest in understanding the problem of schizophrenia. With all the work Mead already had on her shoulders, she continued on her path to educate and understand the world around her. Several books down the line, her legacy was set in stone as the woman who did more for the field of anthropology than no other before her. It is because of Mead that anthropology is known as it is today, and anthropology itself an improved science because of her.